It's finally time to unlock the mystery of our ancient celestial wisdom. I've been called to lead a retreat in Egypt, and man, is this one going to be a massive quantum leap. In this episode, we're discussing the mysteries we're going to be delving into in Egypt, the shift that we're preparing to access, and the true significance of the ankh, the key of life. And after the discussion, we get to the most important part. The group frequency calibration associated with this episode is where the frequency work happens and where change actually occurs. So be sure to listen to that. Without releasing distortion patterns targeted by the GFC, the change you want will be more difficult to attain because you haven't addressed the root of the issue. If you like this episode, please help us out by hitting the like button and leaving a comment below. It helps us get our content to more people like you. My name is Karen Cheong, and today in Mastering Your World Through Frequencies, we're talking about the mysteries we're going to be exploring in Egypt.
So this year, 2025, you're going to head or take a group to Egypt.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, talk me through the process that got you to this point.
Yeah. So as some of you already know, we don't really decide in advance like the top 10 most sacred sites that we want to visit in the world and then like approach them and like check them off our list. That's not really how it happens for us.
Yeah.
It's more like it just became revealed and we knew. So what happened was we were in Zihuatanejo, Mexico about 2 years ago now. And we were interestingly giving the retreat, Navigating the Mystery of the Void. And in that retreat, we had started to ask ourselves as a team, where are we going to be going on retreat this year, this fall? Because we didn't know where we were going. We just knew that we were going to go somewhere.
Yeah.
And we were asking ourselves the question, and through a series of serendipitous kind of left field events, like 3 or 4 days later when the retreat was ending, we knew that we were going to be going to Peru that fall. And not only did we know that we were going to Peru, but that we're also going to be going to Scotland and to Egypt in those subsequent years. And it's kind of like a strange not pairing, but like amalgamation of spaces. Because first of all, people don't really think of Scotland at all, even though it's an extraordinarily powerful place and becoming more and more known in the spiritual circles. But it's not like, the pyramids and the Sphinx, which is like everybody knows it. Right?
It's very elusive.
Yeah, exactly. It is elusive and an extraordinarily powerful place. And so really what's been happening is I've been wondering, okay, well, all right, we went to Peru. Yeah. Okay. So we did that, and we seeded the light codes, which was amazing. And
just for folk watching, the light codes, how do they relate?
Oh, yeah. The light codes have to do with your spirit body and it mirroring the light codes that are held etherically. Okay. And when that activates within you, it activates not only your light body, but also a memory deep within your cell structure that you may or may not be conscious of. But it starts to really accelerate you. And you may not know what that means. You may not know what it looks like. But, everyone thinks acceleration sounds great. But sometimes for some people, it causes a bit of a breakdown of what existed and slowed you down in order for you to move into a different experience, let's just say.
Yeah.
And that was required for us to then do the San Miguel retreat the next spring, which had to do with embodying the light codes.
Yeah.
Like how do you bring that into the human experience? And then we were off to Scotland to really rediscover the Mary Magdalene frequency. And the thing is, because we're embodied, we relate to things as masculine and feminine, right? Not oneness, because we have bodies, right? So there are genders. And so the Magdalene resonance is really the feminine aspect of the Christ consciousness, or what's known as the Christ consciousness. And the being that was known as the Christ is the being that embodied that consciousness.
So we're talking about Jesus now.
Yeah, we're talking about Jesus of Nazareth.
Yes.
But what we did in Scotland was about the consciousness itself.
Yes.
And about clarifying both the feminine and the masculine so we could, within ourselves, be more unified. So we could then access this very high level of consciousness known as the Christ consciousness.
Yeah.
So that is what happened in Scotland. So far in Scotland. And since then, because we've been now resonating with this resonance of the Christ consciousness, which is very high in resonance compared to what would I call like the regular existence of the consciousness level that we're leaving.
Yeah.
We're starting to access, I should say, brilliance Okay, we're starting to access majesty, the glory of everything, including you, meaning the sacredness of all. And that's what we're doing in the San Miguel de Allende retreat, which then readies us for what we're going to be doing in Egypt. And Egypt is, a lot of people are fascinated by Egypt because, that's where all the mystery schools are.
Yes.
You know? And it's like ancient, and there's all this mythology around it, and they have all these cool gods like Isis and Thoth, who isn't exactly a god, but kind of this cool dude who's like in there a bit, right? So there's all this like stuff around it. And, Egypt is a place where it's kind of like the seat of the mystery schools in a way.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting that we are being called to go there at this time. We didn't know why we were being called. I personally, as a human being, like as Karen, was a little bit nervous about Egypt because, the Middle East isn't exactly like, super stable all the time.
Yeah.
It's also a culture that is very heavily male-oriented.
Yeah.
And I am not. And, a lot of our team isn't. And neither is our events coordinator. So, there's a cultural thing that we have to sort of work around and find the right guide for. And it all hinges on the guide.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So just like with Peru, everyone's fascinated with Peru too because of all the magic that happens in Peru. It's in a very powerful place. And we happened to find the perfect guide who wasn't your typical like tourist guide.
Yeah.
And similarly with Egypt, we also have, through a set of circumstances, found the guide who will take us to this place.
Yeah.
Hi, guys. I hope you're loving our conversation. Our discussions are designed to empower you to transform your life and the lives of the people around you. So please hit the subscribe button because it helps us to expand our reach and to empower more people. Okay, let's get back to it.
So let's talk a little bit about Egypt because there might be people watching it again. Well, duh, of course. Yeah. And in their mind, they might already have a presumption about what it is.
Yes.
But what I'd really like to explore is knowing that you don't really know yet what it is. How do you think it can relate or weave into Peru, Scotland, and now Egypt?
Yeah.
Because I'm sure that this is nothing to do with just going to see the pyramids and the Sphinx and all the usual amazing structures that are there that people can explain away with a whole pile of litany of literature and academic and you name it.
Yeah.
Ideas.
Yeah.
But this journey is different.
Yes.
And it does relate back to Peru and Scotland. So sitting here right now, which would be amazing if we could do another episode.
Yeah. After.
Right?
Totally.
The little bit that you've tapped into and the feelings that you have and the kind of inclinations, what do you feel is the draw?
Yeah. So we've been prepared because, as I've been mentioning, our resonance keeps rising. Okay, so whether you've been with us on the journeys or not, doesn't matter. Whether you're called on any particular journey, perfect, right? Because the mastermind has gotten really, really strong. So whoever joins whatever part of whatever journey, they just entrain up to the mastermind. And we're there for a very specific purpose, which is what you asked.
Yes.
Because Spherical Luminosity doesn't do tourist retreats.
No.
We're not there to sightsee. You can sightsee on your own. You don't need us for that.
Yeah.
Really, when we're having a retreat, it's because we're called for a very specific purpose. And it's not just for ourselves, meaning for each individual who participates. Yes, of course, they receive expansion, but it's really there to seed something for the collective to help the rise in consciousness.
Yeah.
So whoever's drawn there is not only in service, of course, to being the best selves, but really are being called to serve at a higher level order. So this is not like a tourist thing, as you were saying.
Exactly.
Right?
And that's why I wanted to ask, because I want the listener to understand what is the call inside them.
Yeah, exactly.
To honor it
if they're feeling
this feels resonant.
Exactly. And so my feeling is, and as you said, like we don't know.
Yeah.
Right? We did something like this before we went to Peru, and I said some stuff, and it was somewhat actually accurate of what happened. And then so much more was revealed because we're like, oh, well, this is what it is.
This is really
what it is. Yeah. So I suspect it will be somewhat similar. So for Egypt, what we're going to be doing is unlocking the mystery of the higher dimensional orders. And the thing is, there was a time when we used to have more of a remembering of our ability to access those higher dimensional orders that we come from. Now, we all don't come from the same dimensional order, okay? So just to make that really clear, it's not like we all came from one specific place and one resonance. No, Okay, it's not about being chosen or anything like that. You were all different. You all came from different dimensional orders. You all came down into Earth and into your incarnation in different ways. So that's wonderful. And at a certain time, we had more of a remembering of those higher dimensional orders. And it wasn't complete, and it wasn't like, I don't know how people might perceive that or imagine that to be, but it was more than what we have now. Yeah. So meaning that we had more of a sense of our authority.
Yes.
Of what it is that we could co-create, which is, by the way, everything.
Yeah.
That we were more heart-centered. So the mind was more still. I know that's hard for us to understand as a culture right now because we're so wanting to be busy, right? So whether we're busy with work or busy looking at our phones or busy whatever, it's like we can't be still as a culture at all. It's really weird. Like people used to just stand in line and be still. Now everyone's on their phones. Yeah. It's really interesting. Like no one can be still. So anyway, they had much more of an awareness of the mind as a tool, heart as dominant, in terms of like your intuition, your perspective is so much more vast. The clarity of what it is that you know is sharper. Your purpose is more clear to you, you know, in terms of awakening in this lifetime and how it is that you can contribute to others. So all of that clarifies and you really start to have a greater sense of yourself as part of the oneness.
Right.
Okay. So I feel like that's part of this mystery that we're starting to unlock and tap into and just know and feel. And I mean, it might be different when we get there, of course.
Yeah.
But I feel like this is like our like it's not just it's like accessing the memory of it and also the ability to, and I realize that for some people this is a big sort of leap. So if you can, just stay in the resonance of what it is I'm saying. It's in terms of the timelines and in terms of what it is that you can call in terms of wisdom. So this question has come up before in other retreats. Can I use my past lifetimes to benefit this lifetime?
Yeah.
Right? This is a question that I've received before. What if you could not only benefit from your past lifetimes, but what if those past lifetimes happen in a very specific way for you to have a very specific wisdom for you to receive now?
Yeah.
What if you had that bigger perspective where you could access all of that and benefit from all your past lifetimes that are sort of not really past? So if you want to know more about past lifetimes, then watch the episode on past lifetimes and how they work. But I feel like we're starting to come into a higher level of mastery, you know, in terms of, okay, this is really what we can do on spirit level, and this is what we have access to, and this is how it not only benefits us in terms of our experience in this lifetime on this earth plane, but how we can positively impact more people.
Let's just talk really basic right now, right? Okay, I'll get there. So tell me what the point is then of actually going to some of these sites that you're going to. Because why not just go to Egypt and then just be together in the group anywhere in Egypt and do the work?
Yeah. Because there are specific sites that we need to go to in order to activate in the physical body. Right? Because you could also argue you could do this etherically. I mean, why physically go anywhere?
Yeah.
Right? Because everything's happening beyond space-time at the frequency resonance. So why do you need to go anywhere physically?
Yeah.
Well, because you're embodied. And because you're embodied, your body, your physical body vibrates at a certain level. And we are going to certain physical spaces with this very specific purpose, doing this very specific work to not only have you expand on the level of the quantum, but also for your physical body to shift. Because my feeling is also our DNA will shift. And so the DNA is about to unlock as well. Because when that unlocks, it's like there's so much remembering held in our DNA that we don't have access to right now.
Yeah.
We simply don't have access to it. And part of this journey is to unlock the DNA.
Yep.
Because we have all these like Marvel movies and all that stuff about superpowers and et cetera, et cetera. I'm not suggesting we're going to be able to like necessarily fly or like, you know, smash boulders with our pinkies or anything like
I'm
that.
not good.
But there is this power within our DNA that we actually don't yet know, that we don't even have we kind of have an inkling of it, but there's something about that activation in the DNA that needs to be done when we're there.
Yep.
That is important. And the sequence of what we see or go to is important as well. And I don't know why. Mm-hmm. We have felt into what order we're going to see. We have discounted a lot of things based on our knowingness. And, Egypt, by the way, just as a little FYI for everybody, ancient Egypt wasn't all glorious and light. Mm-mm. There was a crap ton of dark magic that was happening there at that time as well. Yeah. So there's still that in the field in some of those places, or many of those places. So we obviously don't want to go there. Yeah. We want to go to places that accelerate us. And so every time we go on retreat, we don't necessarily know why we're going to a place, like meaning within the retreat. Like, we're called to go to like Glencoe, for example. We don't know why. We don't know what's going to happen there. We just know we need to go. Yeah. Again, with Egypt, same thing. We're like, we don't even know what this is. You know what I mean? We have to look it up and then feel it. And we're like, oh, yes, we have to go here. We don't know why yet, but we know that it's a very specific sequence because we've been presented, of course, with different itineraries from the guide. And I'm like, no, that's not the itinerary. We actually have like undone all the itineraries and been like, no, this is actually the sequence. Yeah. And we don't know why. We just know. And I believe that we are going to be rising in our resonance, not only on the quantum level, but very much in the embodiment to have this expansion, this unlocking of this mystery deep all the way down into the DNA.
Yeah. Wow, that feels amazing. There's a big influence of this thing called the ankh in Egypt. Mm-hmm. And I know some people believe they understand what it was for. Mm-hmm. And there's some people will say, no, it's not for that. Mm-hmm. There's always the debate. Mm-hmm. Do you think, considering all the knowledge that's there, the mystery schools, the symbology, that this ankh has some sort of significance?
Absolutely. Oh. So the ankh, by the way, for those of you who don't know, it's ANKH, I believe is how people spell it. And it's often referred to as the key of life. Mm-hmm. Okay. And it's been appropriated, I think, to some degree with the anti-abortion people because they've appropriated the symbol. Okay. But, just like other movements just like the Nazis appropriated the swastika, which has to do with the spiral of life and so on. Okay. And they flipped it. In any case, the symbol is a powerful one, is my point. Yeah. Okay, it's a powerful one. It has a lot of stuff projected onto it, and it has a lot of meaning for some people. Like they'll wear it on their bodies and so on, or they'll have it tattooed on themselves. So for me, the ankh is a very specific resonance. Mm. It's meant to activate a whole bunch of things. Specifically ascension, okay? And people will think about it or talk about it as activating the third eye, but it's not just activating your third eye. It's actually your third eye, your heart, and the 8 original cells. Yes. And it's about unifying that whole field of that activation in order for you to ascend in your vibration, and to ascend into a higher level of consciousness. You have to be prepared in order to do it, meaning you have to be able to hold your center, right? To be able to sustain this big jump in resonance. And you have to be able to, be aware of your distortions and release them so you can rise in your frequency resonance. Yeah. So it doesn't really, so I just want to preface this by saying, like, if some of people at home are like, oh my God, that sounds very complicated. I don't know how to do that. I mean, if you do any group frequency calibration, you're doing it. Yeah. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. Yeah. And some of you are really practiced at it because you're dedicated to coming into your center, being stable internally, and then rising in your resonance. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't require something fancy. I just want to put that out there. Yeah. The more that you clear, the more this is available to you. And the reason I'm talking about the ankh and what this means sort of like generally speaking is because, of course, if you go on this journey, that will happen for you on whatever level that happens for you. And then it's seated in the field, in the embodiment for others to do the same. Yes. It's not just the ascended masters that were able to rise in the resonance. It is time now. We're in a time of awakening. Yeah. You all have the ascended master within you. You are. Yes. It's just, you're in process,
I think we could talk all day about this. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, clearly when we get to Egypt, it's going to be another version of the story. Yeah. And so maybe we should just kind of slow it here and do a post.
Yeah.
Egypt.
I think that would be really fun.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So for now then, what do you think the GFC will be for everybody that's watching?
Oh. So for this GFC, it is about clarifying this heaviness, right? That keeps you from being able to rise in your resonance. That keeps you sort of mired in the collective story right now. There's a lot of pessimism and there's a lot of cynicism and there's a lot of like, it's almost like cool to be cynical right now, to not have joy, to be like blaming other people, everyone sucks and etc. Right? So there's a lot of this pervasive in the greater collective at this point in time. And it's really to be or do, I'm not sure what the verb is, an act of power to be like, that doesn't need to be my story.
Yeah.
I understand it's many people's stories, but it doesn't need to be mine.
Yes.
And so part of that is to move away from that collective story and know that you have the ability to come into your center and to rise in your resonance. So that's what the GFC will do. It will help you to gain space from the collective and to release those distortions so you can gain more momentum to rise in your frequency resonance.
Oh, that sounds so pertinent. Oh my goodness. Let's do it. Let's go.
Cool.
Let's go.
So if you would like to rise in your frequency resonance and have a very different story from that of the collective at this moment, then I highly recommend listening to the group frequency calibration associated with this episode. And if you know someone who'd be interested in hearing this, please share this with them. We're about to start the group frequency calibration, or GFC, where we actually do the frequency work and change is catalyzed. To get to the GFC, click on the square that'll appear on the right or the link in the description below. It's time to bring in a new experience, a new consciousness, and a new world. Let's rise together.